Gronowski, Max Llewellyn, and the Iowa Hawkeyes host Mateo Uyunglele, Dante Moore, Dakorien Moore, and the Oregon Ducks in a massive Big Ten showdown. Without a doubt, massive college football playoff implications on the line here in Iowa. We have to start with the defenses in this game. Iowa, a very good defense. Last time we saw them on the field, well, they were dominating a good Minnesota Golden Gopher football team. They limited them to a total of 133 total yards in that game. Incredible. A phenomenal performance. 3 interceptions from Drake Lindsey. It was a suffocating defensive day. 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. This Iowa team then compounded that with a very efficient day from Gronowski, a day in which they ran the football 433 yards, 2 touchdowns, a thrashing at home. And then for Oregon, last time we saw them, look, a win's a win, especially in conference play against Wisconsin. Look, did it go the way they wanted it to in the first half? It was a decisive, convincing win. Overall, second half, they sort of just suffocated Wisconsin. That was not a very good Wisconsin team. It looks like to this point, it's a team that doesn't have a whole lot of heart and soul to that roster right now, but they can run the ball well and they can stop the run. Where I'm looking at here in this game is specifically at the identity. A lot of people don't know how run-oriented Oregon is. They run the football in the high 50s in terms of percentage of the time. They've got 223 pass attempts on the season to 303 rushing attempts on the year. A little bit more like Iowa, where Iowa, they've got 188 pass attempts to where they have 306 rushing attempts. So a little bit less a balance for Iowa, where they keep the ball on the ground a lot. I don't see a reason for Iowa to change a single thing. If you're playing Oregon, you want this game to be nasty. You want to drag Oregon down into the deep end with you. It's at home. This stadium is going to be rocking. One of the games of the day on Saturday in college football. This team, they've got USC next week. This is their season right now. If they're able to get through an Oregon game, they're basically a win away from being a team that can get to 10-2 and be a college football playoff team. This isn't an Iowa team that comes in with a lot of confidence that they can have success against Oregon. I think they're going to take a look at the film that Wisconsin put out on the field, and they're going to say, hey, I think there's a little bit to be had here, whereas that we can limit what Oregon does on the ground. I believe that without a really mobile quarterback in Dante Moore, he's serviceable enough with his legs, but without a guy that's a huge threat with his legs, whereas they have a guy in Gronowski that is without a doubt one of the more mobile, athletic quarterbacks. He had 10 carries against Minnesota, a touchdown on the ground, more than willing to go out and do that. Similar to a Fernando Mendoza. You saw his legs a couple of times against Oregon. I think that the athletic, mobile quarterback in this game is an advantage for Iowa because you have something else that you can go to. When you've got a 3rd and 7, a quarterback that's a bit more likely to pick up that first down, you have another option. Now, Oregon, they have a far more talented receiving core than what Iowa's working with. I mentioned the freshman in Dakorien Moore at the beginning of this. Well, he leads the Ducks in receiving yards. He's got 440 yards, 3 touchdowns on the year. He's their leading wide receiver. This is an Oregon team that is very balanced. They're not a number one heavy guy, or they're not a duo or trio. There's truly 5 guys in this core with the tight end Kenyon Sadiq, with Gary Bryant, with Malik Benson, with Jeremiah McClellan that builds up this roster, and then they put that together with a very deep running back core with Noah Whittington, with De'Aaron Hill, with Jordan Davison, all of these guys that have had success. And what has that led to? It's been a very fresh Oregon team that is going to be faster, fresher than other teams that they see just because of the rotation that they have and how many quality players that they have in the game that are fresh and go out there with legs that haven't necessarily had to run the football 20 times every single game. Where you're talking about a guy in Whittington who's only got 51 carries on the season. Davison's only got 51 carries on the season. De'Aaron Hill, he's only got 36 carries on the season, where at the time of this part of the year, you've got tons of guys with over 100 carries on the year. They're starting to wear down, whereas you're a Jordan Davison, he's got 10 touchdowns. He's only got 51 carries. 20% of his carries are getting into the box for scores. He's your guy down there in the red zone. Look, Oregon presents a lot of challenges as a defensive front. To talk about Amari Washington right in the middle there, and then you've got, of course, Barrett Alexander. These two guys on this defense, phenomenal defensive line. And then, of course, the edge, Mateo Uyunglele, arguably the best edge player in the Big Ten. For Iowa going up against that, that's a massive challenge because you know they want to run the football. That's where I think you lean a little bit higher on that zone read and having Gronowski keep the ball and run it very often. Certainly, you don't want a game where he throws the football more than 25 times. That is a recipe for disaster, a way in which the game gets away from you. Even if you're down 10, down 13, 14 points, I truly believe you keep the game on the ground, you stay with the balance, and you try and chew that clock and keep this game within 10, within 7 points in that fourth quarter so that you can apply scoreboard pressure. When you saw Penn State down 14, they stayed with it, stuck in the game. They found themselves, the Oregon Ducks did, in an all-out war at the end of that game because it got tight. Scoreboard pressure applied against Indiana. Tight game, scoreboard pressure applied, and they weren't rising to the task. In their only regular season loss in the past 2 seasons. It's incredible to say that a team that comes in transitioning into the Big Ten and they are just dominating teams. I mean, so far on the season in 2025, they've been, I would say, just as good as an offense. There's still maybe a little bit to be seen of Dante Moore in comparison to Dillon Gabriel. I think that Moore has a level of efficiency in that he's got a bigger arm than what Dillon Gabriel is working with, or he can hit those throws with a bit more pace and layer them in there and fire them in with a bit more pace, where Gabriel was throwing a little bit more of a floater touch. He relied a lot more on anticipation, whereas Dante Moore, he can make all the throws. One of the more talented throwers of the football in the entire country, in all of college football. He's one of those guys, 6'3", 220 pounds, where he can provide defenses with a ton of questions that they're going to have to answer. And Iowa will have to come up with those, because I think there's a point where Dan Lanning, if you see a game that's 7-3, second quarter, where he's like, I think that we can really take advantage. Dakorien Moore, go to him one-on-one. Kenyon Sadiq working out of the slot, the middle of the field. That's where this guy roams. He's arguably the best tight end in college football. Getting him one-on-one opportunities and getting the football to him. And does that play into Iowa's hands? Now, they've got 3 guys on this roster as a defense that have over 4 sacks on the season. Aaron Graves, he's got 4 sacks. He gets after the quarterback really well. And then you look in the secondary, and TJ Hall, he's got 8 passes defense. And Deshaun Lee, he's got 5 passes defense. And then you also look at who's probably their best defensive player, Max Llewellyn. They've got a ton of talent. Iowa's always got NFL players on their rosters consistently. Maybe they don't get the attention, not maybe, they certainly don't get the attention that the upper echelon teams of the Big Ten or the SEC do, but they always have NFL guys that will go to the league and not just succeed, but succeed consistently and play at a very high level. This is an impressive Iowa team, but by no doubt in my mind, no stretch in my mind, do I think that this is going to be a blowout. I see Oregon having a tough task. They need to start fast. In order for them to, I think, have a shot at blowing them out, it's going to take them going down, opening possession, bam, right down the field, 7 points, relying on their advantage on the perimeter, which is speed. We talk a lot about some of these games that aren't quite matchups. They're a little bit of a matchup game where Iowa has that talent. I think that's in the trenches, whereas on the outside, those defensive backs, massive advantage to Oregon. Dakorien Moore, Gary Bryant, and Kenyon Sadiq. Maybe a little bit of a style here where I think Oregon tries to lengthen the game, saying, look, we're better than Iowa. I put a little bit more on the plate of Dante Moore, who has been up to the challenge just about every game this season. When you've put a lot on his plate, he's been able to deliver throughout the year. And so I would open this thing up a little bit as far as if you have incompletions, the game is longer, you're going to wind up getting more possessions. I think Oregon tries to open up this game a little bit more, trying to just take it to Iowa, saying, we're going to out roster you guys. We have better athletes than you do on the outside, and we are going to attack and use them. Of course, Oregon's going to run the football. Look, no matter what style they come out playing, if it's attacking down the field, going up the middle through the seams, or taking advantage of their backs out in the flat and dumping it off and making Dante Moore hit his checkdowns and looking for the quick gains and easy completions early, this team's going to be running the football more than 25, 30 times. It's just going to come at you every time. I'd be surprised if they didn't run the football for more than 35 times in this game against Iowa, even though the attack very well could be a style where they are just really hemming and pushing the football down the field. It surprised me to see Dante Moore struggle the way that he did, seeing what the Buckeyes did to Wisconsin. Ohio State moved the football right down the field. Julian Sayin was, 36 of 42 for 390. I was pretty confident that at home that Dante Moore could do something similar to that. Obviously, with a bit of he got hurt there, but it really showed you that, man, maybe this Oregon wide receiving core might not be up to that level of those veterans that they have there in Indiana with Cooper Jr. and Surratt, who are one of the best duos in the country. And then you've got the best duo in college football, probably the best two wide receivers in the country in Smith and Tate. Of what you have another level. What does Oregon have that the Buckeyes don't have? Well, it's this run game with these amount of guys that get after it and run the football. Ohio State, they struggle to run the ball. Iowa and Oregon, they really have not struggled to run the football. These teams keep it on the ground. Oregon running for over 200 yards against Wisconsin. Do they do that against Iowa? I really don't think they do. I've got, again, a feeling that Iowa has a very good feel for what Oregon wants to come out to do. And you're going to see them defend that run very well and almost force Oregon to play into that game style. Caught two high safeties, or they'll drop one down, and they're going to make Oregon have to earn every single yard. They're not going to give the balls over the top. They're also not going to give Oregon the easy completions. They're going to have to earn every single completion that they get. I think you'll also see them back off just a tad. I really think they're going to try and stay in this game by not allowing the deep shot. If I'm Oregon, still, you get those one-on-ones, you got to take them. Moore's just that talented. Bryant's just that good. Kenyon Sadiq, probably the most athletic tight end we've seen since Brock Bowers at this position. He's fantastic. So I like Oregon to win this game. Originally, I had them winning this game by a margin of 30-17. I got to change that prediction. I think they win this game 30-21. They're favored by 7.5 on the road. I see this being a 6, maybe a 5-point game late, and then Oregon adds a field goal maybe to seal it, take it from a 6 to a 9-point game and win it 30-21, that it stays close. Iowa fights to the end here. No matter what the result is, they're still going to give their best shot to USC in a week. I got a feeling that we're going to have a really good game on Saturday. Look, Oregon, with games against Iowa, with USC still on the schedule, with Washington, this is one of the toughest schedules in the country on the back half. Just because Iowa isn't getting the respect around the country in all of college football, just because they're not ranked right now, does not mean this is not a good football team. Iowa's a good football team. Just because USC is down and ranked number 20, I think that team's a little bit better. Or Washington, who hasn't gotten the respect that they absolutely deserve. I think that it's been heinous, honestly, the way that Washington has been treated by the AP poll. I'm recording this video on Sunday night, so we're going to have the college football playoff rankings. I think that Washington will be ranked once we come to those rankings on Tuesday, which is very likely that you are watching this at that point. Washington is ranked in the AP poll number 24. So where are they, stacking up-wise? I think Iowa, without a doubt, should be a team ranked. All this talk about the SEC, those teams in that middle tier, Iowa, Michigan, USC, Washington, all of those teams have been very good. Even Illinois, who's been decent this season. This tier 2 of the Big Ten is very deep. I think that they can rival your Vanderbilts, your Missouris, your Tennessees, your Oklahomas, like that type of talent, they go up against that middle tier of the Big Ten. I think it's pretty comparable. And then at the top, I mean, Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana, compared that to what, Alabama, A&M, and Georgia. I think that Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana are better. Those three teams are just better at the top of the level than what you have in Alabama, Texas A&M, and Georgia. I think they play better defense in the Big Ten than what those teams have. All three of them has showed the defensive side of the football, and all of them have answers on offense, dynamic passing attacks, and also have the ability to lean on the run. Maybe the weakest of that group is Ohio State, but again, Alabama, one of the worst running teams in college football. So I'm going to say 30-21, Oregon wins this game over Iowa. Let me know down below if you want me to continue to go through what's happening around the country and dialing it into not just this matchup, but sort of backing out to the entire grand scheme of everything. If you want to hear about that stuff, I'm sure a lot of you do. You're just as passionate and excited about this stuff as I am. Fired up for this matchup. I know that you are too. Let me know down below your prediction. Am I giving a little bit too much to Iowa and their defensive front with these guys and their talent, or Gronowski's ability to keep this game close? We're talking about a national champion quarterback. This kid has a ton of the tools to be able to pull up a massive upset. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you so much for watching. If you have not already, subscribe for more Blitz with Blender content in the future. I make college and NFL videos here weekly, and we're coming out with all of this as the games start to get bigger. Cannot believe we've only got, 3-4 more weeks of the regular season left in the college football season before we get to the playoff. It's incredible. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.